And thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. We are so incredibly excited. We are going to have a conversation. We are going to listen to some music together. I can't think of anything that would be better for the world right now than to listen to some music together and talk about it with one of the greatest music writers, greatest music thinkers I think we have on planet Earth right now. Maestro, Richard running the boards back here. Richard on the ones and the twos. Richard, spin us the first track, Kate Bush, Watching You Without Me, Hounds of Love, 1985.
You watch the clock move the slow hand. I should have been home hours ago, but I'm not here. But I'm not here.
Hanif, why did you want to start with this song tonight?
Yeah, so when I was, like the first real breakup I had, like I feel like everything in my life, at least before age, like 17, didn't really count. It was less of a breakup, more just like a negotiation of distance, how much and for how long. But when I was 17, I was dating someone who was going to a different school, like college, like going away to college, going to Boston. And we were very clear on the fact that we weren't going to try to make, I was going to college in Columbus. We lived in the same neighborhood too. And I think, you know, there was something about our relationship that was very much proximity based, as those can be when you're a teenager. And the day that we broke up, I remember a lot of, to give credit to a lot of my ex-partners, a lot of my formative years, the music taste that I built upon was showed to me by like very wonderful and smart girls, young women who were dating me at the time. And this was one of them. Her parents had a really incredible record collection. Mine did too, but you know, particularly in black neighborhoods, I felt like what I enjoyed about growing up in a black neighborhood with other black people is that our parents had, the record collections told these massive stories about where your parents were from or where their people were from or what kind of sounds they were into. And her parents really loved Kate Bush, like a lot. And I knew very little about Kate Bush at that time, which is funny because now I think people who know me even a little bit know she's one of my most important artists in my life, but I knew very little about her. And she put that record, she put Hounds of Love on and put on this specific song while we were having this wonderful breakup, this very gentle, beautiful, wonderful breakup conversation. She had this song playing, a breakup that we knew was like, it wasn't shocking to either of us. Like it wasn't like Boston was going to miraculously inch itself closer to the Midwest. And I remember listening to her express a sense of gratitude for the time we had together. We'd known each other since we were like kids. And listening, trying to listen intently to the breakup conversation, but also being so driven into the depth of the rhythms of that song, which are kind of, you know, Kate Bush's rhythmic patterns are sometimes a little uneven, which I think tends to steer the ear a little bit closer to it. And that is why I picked that song, which I love as a song, but I also love because it ties me to this person who I still adore. I saw her, I did a book tour stop in Boston where she still lives, and she came and she bought her little fella. She has like she has a husband who's not a little fella. Though that would be funny. It was like she bought her little fella. Her husband is short, as if I am 6'8". But she bought her son, and she bought her partner, and it was really great to see her. And you know, I really believe if you can swing it, I would not recommend this for everybody, but if you can swing it every now and then, staying friends with an ex who has known you for a long time is a real gift, I think. No, it's not for everybody, to be clear. Only if you can swing it.
And if you want to stay friends, you know, maybe put on Hounds of Love during the breakup.
Yeah.
Something about Kate Bush that's remarkable is the way she's able to be innovative and experimental and also write these melodic hooks that just kind of burrow into your synapses and stay
Yeah.
there. Richard, Maestro, could we hear the next clip, please? The bridge of this track?
What an idea, what a great, there's no better experience, I think, to encapsulate a Kate Bush thing than to be like, yeah, play the backwards one.
And it's backwards, but it's also, well, it's she played it backwards and then learned how to sing it and then sung it and then played that backwards, giving it this sort of eerie character.
Yeah.
It's like the end of the scene in Twin Peaks, right? In the red
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
For those
For Twin Peaks heads in the room.
Twin Peaks heads in the room, exactly. But it's a
Fewer of you than I expected.
it's a fascinating effect because on the one hand it's a little unnerving when you're listening to it, and at the same time it's so melodic, it's so catchy.
Yeah.
How does she thread that needle as an artist?
Well, I think the thing that I enjoy about Kate Bush is that her desire for strangeness and experimentation never felt at odds with her pop sensibilities. Also, I mean, we don't have to get into the making of Hounds of Love, though I could for a very long time. But what she was doing with particularly like the Fairlight CMI technology, where she was, at a time when that technology was almost kind of a little steering out of vogue, she figured out how to reinvent the machine. Like, it really got into the weeds of it. Like, she was programming pitch bends into it and then bending the pitches. And she was doing all this stuff purely to achieve a kind of melodic tone.
Yeah.
Like, she has such a good pop ear. And you find there are some pop stars, I think too many perhaps, who have this slight bent towards strangeness and experimentation, but they feel like it's at odds with their pop sensibilities. And so their impulse is to then be like, let me make a different, isolated, weird-ass record instead of just combining these things. And Kate Bush, I don't think she found this real skill where her sensibilities and her strangeness were married seamlessly. I think a lot of it begins on the dreaming, but what she was able to do with Hounds of Love, where pulling sounds into the natural world and kind of making them, bending them so that they would sound different and a bit sweet, I love it. I love it.
Can we get one more clip from Watching You Without Me? Here's the outro of the song.
Yo, imagine, for real, imagine hearing that while someone is like crying on the floor of their parents' living room and being like, I'm gonna miss you so much. And I'm like hearing that out of one ear and being like, what the fuck? And in the other ear, I'm like, yes, totally.
You're like, wait, one sec. Hold that thought.
Can we play this song again?
We have 11 more tracks to get through in the soundtrack of your life. And let's hear the second. This is Fireworks. Oh, why can't we start old and get younger? From this Detroit emo band's second album, Gospel, from 2011.
First came the fountain, first came the fountain of youth. I'm sympathetic, I went through what they went through. Next came Pet Cemetery, instead of worship in the ground, I'll keep my eyes off it, so I can turn my life around. Wanna make you feel like you just read dedication written in a book that you found. I'll keep holding on, even though nothing wants to hold back. I'm getting over this track. I'm bent on. I don't need to feel the way I used to feel.
Does anyone know fireworks in the room? No, anyone? Anyone at all?
We got a woo.
One woo.
One woo.
Is there a very? I mean, you had to have been. Even okay. Fireworks is an interesting band because if you talk to a lot of pop punk bands of a certain era, that like the wave after the boom, so like the late 2000s, early 2010s, they're like every band's favorite band, like truly every band's favorite band. But you really wouldn't know fireworks unless you were of the Midwest in between the years like 2007 and 2014. And if you happened to stumble into Detroit, you would see this band play. And also the other thing about fireworks is, to me, in the genre, I know pop punk is a very broad genre, they're one of the great bands. They're truly, but they also self-sabotage, which I love. I kind of love that about them. Their last album is called Lonely Higher Power. It's one of the best albums in the genre. To me, it's stunning.
Yeah.
And it got it's got like massive critical acclaim. The thing with Lonely Higher Power is no one really heard it because the band opted to release it on New Year's Day 2023 and didn't tour at all. They were just like, and that was, to be clear, it had also been on hiatus for like 8 years. So imagine a band being like, we're coming out of hiatus. We're gonna put our first record out of hiatus out. But we're gonna do it on like the morning of New Year's, and then you're just not gonna hear from us. So you had to be like a real fireworks head to hear Lonely Higher Power, you know?
I had never heard of this group until I encountered them on this playlist, and this track is really remarkable. I'd like to highlight the lyrics of the pre-chorus, if I may, because I feel like you could put this in the dictionary definition of pop punk. I want to make you feel like you just read a dedication written in the book that you found. What is it about that sentiment that just screams emo to me?
Yeah.
It's
a personalization, right?
It's a personalization.
It's almost like so much of the emotional, and this is going to sound derogatory, but it's not really, because I grew up with this stuff, you know? I have affect for it. But it's so much of the emo affect, what is being reached for emotionally, is the feeling of going to, I don't think these stores exist anymore, but going to like things remembered when you're young and realizing you can engrave anything on anything. And then saying, I get to give that to someone, you know? And I get to give that to someone and it's theirs and it's only theirs.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I'll say this, I love this song. I love this song so much. And the pre-chorus is but I love the chorus. I love that sentiment of like, I keep holding on even though nothing wants to hold back. I also love that the entire concept of the song, pulled from its title, is based off this kind of reverse timeline of living. There's this very funny meme that goes around every now and then where it's like, I don't even know if it's a meme, it's a concept where it's like, if I could build a time machine, I would go back and then kiss all my friends on the forehead as babies. I don't really want to do that, personally. I don't really want to see my friends as babies. Yeah. It would be strange to me to do that. They would not know who I was. They would not remember me.
Yeah.
I could not explain myself to, like, any of my baby friends. And so you're just a fucking weirdo kissing you. However, though, to talk about this song, what I do love, in a very real way, our lives began, and so much of those beginnings are not chosen for us. And so the first act of our life, I think, or the first act of my life, was just a series of things that were predetermined, that were happening to me. And there's a damage you accumulate through those happenings. And so the architecture of your adult life is at least upheld by your ability to maneuver or not maneuver the damages of not choosing to be here, not choosing to be born where you were born, not choosing your family or your neighborhood or any of that. And there's something I don't actually want this in a real material way, but there's something that fascinates me about starting life at a point where you have lived decades with various emotional aches and some physical perhaps, and then living a life where you're walking backwards to a point where you are not familiar with the pain that living with those for so long could do to you. So you're kind of unraveling your own pain. I don't want to live in reverse. I'm not saying that would be ideal, but there is something interesting about proposing that, because after all the things that happened to me, after my birth and ending up in Columbus, Ohio and figuring it out, there was a point at which I was truly happy. Like, I think there was a point in my childhood, and that's the reason, too, I don't want to go back and see my friends as babies, because they don't know what the fuck's coming. Not just from me holding them and being, look at you, baby friend of mine, but they don't know. But there is a point in my childhood where I felt almost invincible. And I really cherish the possibility of living a life where I could work backwards and stumble backwards into that invincibility again, because I've never felt it again.
Well, I mean, that's beautifully said, and feels like what draws us to this kind of music. It spills over.
Yeah.
The lyrics spill over. The sentiment can't be contained by its own logic or its own emotion. And the music spills over. The guitars like resonate, literally like from the verse into the pre-chorus, into the chorus. The guitars like sustain. So it's like all carrying over. It's spilling out of the speakers.
It's urgent, right?
It's urgent, yeah. I like that.
That's the whole, the tent poles of emo are all urgency. Not saying that other music isn't urgent, but there's this idea, even Fireworks in the function of this song is saying, like, I am unsatisfied. It's an urgency born out of unsatisfaction. Now, to be clear, having grown up on that scene, a lot of those dissatisfactions were, some of them, not a lot, some of those dissatisfactions were petty and rooted in malice. Usually malice that was forged in the cauldron of misogyny. But what I like about Fireworks, and a lot of those bands who kind of came in that second wave after, it wasn't the second wave, but the wave after the kind of emo explosion of the mid-2000s, was their urgencies were really about a dissatisfaction with American suburbia, I think. Or a dissatisfaction with, and it wasn't childlike. It wasn't like, I hate my parents. It was like, I feel like I've been lied to. And even though I was not perhaps in the same kind of place as these, I was like a Black American kid who grew up East Columbus around other Black kids who had a different kind of sense that we were being lied to. But it was interesting, I think, for me to dive into a music where people were saying, I gotta get out of here, no matter where the here was. There has to be something other than here. And what I love about Fireworks in this song is that it really does feel like they're grasping at air, just hoping to catch something.
Cauldron of Misogyny? That sounds like the title of
an emo record.
Of an emo record, exactly. That's up for grabs for anyone here tonight. Let's take a hard left turn into the world of 1990s R&B. We're going to listen to Mariah Carey featuring Krayzie Bone and Wishbone. This is Breakdown off 1997's Butterfly. Maestro, please. Did anyone else see the video the Grammys did a Mariah Carey tribute? And Billy Porter's ass got up there, and he's saying, well, he's saying what ostensibly was "Always Be My Baby," but it was also several other songs
none of which were decipherable to me. And I couldn't find the key, you know what I mean? The brother was all over the place. And Mariah was there. Because this is the thing that people, I'm sorry, we get to the song. But why do people be doing this to Mariah a little too much? They put her in these positions where she has to sit up there and listen to other people sing her songs. More than I think other artists have had to in their careers. Like artists who have much bigger catalogs than her, like artists who are like capital D divas, you know what I mean? Like and Mariah is who I'm saying, like Patti LaBelle, like, you know, Mariah is always in the front row of someone fucking up her songs. And the funny thing about the Billy Porter performance is that the camera of course keeps cutting to her. And she's really trying. Like normally she actually does not try very much. Normally like her face is not, she does not. But I don't know if she loves Billy Porter very much, but there was a point at which she was actively trying to be like, there was a point where she was, this was actually the funniest part. She was mouthing the lyrics and kind of doing this almost as if to say, please just keep, you know,
got
like,
this. Yeah.
If you keep going, you'll find a key, maybe not the key, but a key. And then towards the end, she was just like she was watching, like she was watching a horror film. And I love Mariah Carey so much. They gotta just, if you're gonna do a tribute, let her stay at the crib maybe. Just don't be putting people up singing. Although Maggie Rogers did a beautiful performance of Honey. Shout out to Maggie. But Maggie Rogers can, no disrespect to Billy Porter, Maggie Rogers can like sing. You know what I mean? Like,
These are hard songs to sing.
they're hard songs.
Not just because of the range, which is staggering. And we'll listen to another clip where she does some impossibly stratospheric things with her voice. But there's also the rhythm.
Yep.
I mean, this song, Breakdown, featuring two of the members of Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Ohioans, by the way.
Ohio, yes. Cleveland's finest. She's channeling their unique flow in this song. These rhythms that she's singing are very, very dexterous, very syncopated. You really have to nail every syllable for this to sound good. And of course, she makes it sound easy at the same time. Effortless, nonchalant, as she would say in the lyrics of this song.
It does. It almost feels like they're actually trying to keep up with her. Which in this song came out at a time where people were, anytime we would get folks who would do guest spots with Bone on their songs, they would automatically almost quicken the pace of their delivery, like other rappers. And it almost seems like Mariah has taken advantage of things like her breath control and things like just the dexterity of her voice to build this kind of relentless staccato rhythm. And it almost feels like they're actually a little bit behind the pace of it. It all works out in the end, of course. But to watch her perform this live, I think is really interesting. Like prime Mariah live, like you know, 97 to 2005. I saw her on the Emancipation of Mimi tour. She did this song, and it was so seamless. And in parts of it felt like it was one single breath. I think she does actually not get a lot of credit for her breath control. The amount of language she fits into a single line, her ability to stretch out a single line and then catapult that single line into another line, which is like a very Whitney Houston-esque thing. I'm not saying that Whitney Houston is the first to do it, but like there's a range of singer that has that level of breath control that leads to a real command of language.
Yeah. Try to sing this chorus on your drive home. You'll be panting by the end. And speaking of just kind of jaw-dropping vocal performances, Richard, can we hear the next clip? This is the outro of the song with some classic Mariah whistle tones and runs.
But in reality, I'm changing my mind. 'Cause it's so much that I'm trying to decide. How do I feel? What do you think? You gotta tell something real. But in reality,
wanna say that I actually think, and this is gonna sound silly maybe, but I think that this is one of the great songs in music history that is actually palpably tapping into the madness of loneliness. Like, it's a song about madness. Like, actually, right? Like, it's a song, I know that she actually uses the plain language, losing my mind, but also the repetition of cry at the end of the song is like haunting. It's fucked up. And the entire body of the song is about having to maneuver the time in between you waking up crying and then the time where you can get back to going to bed and crying. And it means that you are sacrificing the part of yourself. You're surrendering your own ability to feel grief at the volume and velocity you are needed to or required to at the moment, to go out in the world and just lie to everyone, right? Which is a kind of madness. You know what I mean? Like, it is a madness to be like, whether or not you feel, I don't know what Mariah's friends were on in the narrative of the song, but what it seems like they were on is like, we don't want to hear this shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because she's having to fabricate an entire personality when what she wants to do is go back to her room and cry for several hours. And some would say that to stay in bed crying all day is a kind of madness, but I would counter that to have to, when you want to do that, to have to go in the world and convince people that you're actually fine, that is what actually, that's the engine of madness, right? And so this song is so good at capturing a very specific kind of isolation that isn't shameful, I think. For me, I don't think there's anything shameful about crying in bed all day. Perhaps if the days rack up, maybe you want to check in with someone.
Yeah.
But I don't think what's happening I love this song so much because what's happening in it, particularly at the end with the repetition of cry, I do a poetry workshop where I talk about how the repetition of language, if you say a word, there's this mythology of if you say a word long enough, it loses its shape, it becomes flimsy, it begins to mean nothing. But that's not actually, in my mind, that's not true. When a word is repeated long enough, it maybe loses its form a bit, which means that through these functional repetitions, the word begins to almost haunt the air, right? Because you're hearing it so frequently, and you're hearing it in this song, you're hearing it arrive in slightly different ways each time, that it almost lives inside of you now, like you can't get it out of your head. And so repetition is a kind of haunting, or it can be, if it's executed well, and it's executed so well at the end of the song.
Your reading makes me hear those wordless background vocals in a different way.
Yeah.
And she's stacking the harmonies on top.
Yeah.
Are those like the unadulterated wails that she feels inside but can't express?
And the fact that the song ends that way after we've been told that this is a person who has something inside of them that they have had to suppress for an amount of time.
Yeah.
I think Mariah Carey is a great singer of heartbreak songs. And I actually don't think that's a part of her catalog that people spend as much time in, because she's also a great singer of like dance pop songs, and she's also a great singer of kind of the cheeky, poppy love song.
Yeah.
But even her fun heartbreak songs are really either scathing or devastating. Yeah. And there's actually not a lot of in between there. It's like either you're getting Heartbreaker, which is very fun but also really scathing, or you're getting something like Breakdown, which is devastating.
It's getting dark. It's about to get darker. Our next track actually comes in the form of a music video. And I do need to tell you that there's some strobe effects here. So if you're sensitive to light, you may want to avert your eyes. We're going to hear DMX, Get At Me Dog, from It's Dark and Hell Is Hot. This is his debut album from 1998.
Where my dogs at?
We right here, dog.
Where my dogs at?
We right here, dog.
What must I go through to show you shit is real? And I ain't really never gave a fuck how niggas feel. Rob and I steal, not cause I want to, cause I have to. And don't make me show you with the Mac. If you don't know by now, then you slip. I'm on some bullshit that's got me jacking niggas flip. Let my man in them stay pretty, but I'm gonna stay shitty. Cruddy, it's all for the money. Is you with me? Get the bitches, now I commit the crime. When it's on, we transform like Optimus Prime. Out on the head, roll out, let's make it happen. If we ain't gonna get it.
Oh, man.
I feel pretty confident saying that's the first time DMX has been played in the August halls of Dinkelspiel.
Yeah.
Where does this song fit into the soundtrack of your life, Hanif?
Well, this is an important. I wanted to have this video because it's important to tell a story about a time when an artist could almost invent their own mythology without input from the audience. I grew up I'm a kid of the '90s. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and my brother got Source magazine. And got XXL magazine, but this is specifically about the Source because in 1991, DMX was in a column called Unsigned Hype, which is where the like archives of unsigned hype in the Source are incredible because you'll see someone when they were a much younger rapper. You'll see like Common in 94 or 93. DMX was in there under the name DMX the Great. And then he kind of vanished for a while. And then he reemerged, but mostly through rumor. Like, you would hear, living in Columbus, you would occasionally get wafts of things from New York because you would listen to, people would record DJ shows on tapes, and so you would hear about DMX and how there was like a bidding war, a massive bidding war for his services. Labels were putting up a lot of money to get him, and people would be like, and he barks like a dog, And I had never seen him. Other than I didn't remember the Unsigned Hype column by the time this was happening, 97, 98. So did not remember what he looked like, had not heard him. And when the video for Get At Me Dog premiered, it was a big deal. It premiered on UMTV Raps on a Friday night when UMTV Raps came on, and it was a moment because a lot of people only got to understand DMX through this grapevine experience, which I look at that now and I think about that now, that feels so impossible. Like, for example, a more modern example, I remember when The Weeknd first came out, he was his most interesting to me when no one knew anything about him. Like, no one knew what he looked like. No one knew, and the stories were just bananas. It was like, they're recording these songs in like trap houses in Toronto. And, I remember the music video for The Morning that he wasn't in where there was like a women vomiting black tar. It was fucking wild. And I remember being like, how long can this sustain itself? And I don't mean this to be a diss on him because I like some of the stuff he's come up, but ever since The Weeknd became someone we could see and touch, it's gradually become less interesting to me. Because I think about those trilogy records and what made them so interesting and fascinating was that it was painting a picture of a lifestyle that felt like an unattainable film, where it's like, we are just doing as many drugs as possible, having sex with models, waking up at 3 p.m. and doing it over and over again. And there was I'm not saying I wanted that lifestyle. Despite the fact that many models are interested in courting me.
Constantly propositioning, yeah.
Just constantly. And I say, no, sorry, models.
You're like, what's your feeling on Kate Bush?
Yeah. Don't want to go to your fancy parties, models. Just kidding. If you are here and you're a model, we can talk after. But DMX, in a world before this, I remember seeing the video for Get At Me Dog and being like, one, it's directed by Hype Williams. Hype Williams is my favorite music video director in history. But Get At Me Dog is actually a different looking Hype Williams video than a lot of his videos. Because do folks in here know Hype Williams and his body of work? It's very colorful, specifically blues. Like there's a color I call like Hype Williams blue. Yeah. And Get At Me Dog is just like really gritty. Yeah. It's shot in the Tunnel in New York, famous rap venue in the Tunnel. And it's just that. It's the video does not evolve beyond that. It's just this beautiful. In the opening scene, I would recommend go home and watch the opening scene. People are holding like dog collars over the fence, like over the balcony in the tunnel, and it's fucking wild. And I remember being like, "This is for real." And I thought that because when you hear this guy barks like a dog when he raps, you think, "Oh, ha ha ha," right? What a silly thing. But then 35 seconds into that video, you're like, I get it. This shit is incredibly real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this shit is, he's embodying this whole thing entirely. I loved it. I loved how abrasive and aggressive it was. I loved that it felt dangerous, but also kind of loving, because a tunnel is such a close-knit. It's like you have to be shoulder to shoulder. And it also felt really triumphant. Like, it felt like everyone in that room, because that video really was shot. I mean, they just straight up, like, Hype Williams is like, I'm gonna come to your show and just shoot the thing. And so it also felt like everyone in that room had been waiting for this dude to blow up, and it was happening right in front of them. And there's nothing like seeing that, especially in a town or a city or a place that helped make you. I know I'm sorry. I once saw the rapper Big Chris from Meridian, Mississippi. I once saw him play a small bar in Meridian, Mississippi, right before he got big. And he has this song, Hometown Hero, where he samples Adele. The reason it's not on streaming is because Adele didn't clear the sample for Hometown Glory. Though she had no problem using it in like Cadillac commercials and shit. Sure, the money's better. And he played that song like 7 times in a row. Wow. And people who had seen him come up since he was a kid, like people who went to church with him, there was like old women in that bar. There was like, I was near crying. I was moved by it because, and I think that's something that is being replicated throughout history. I'm not saying DMX Get At Me Dog is the first time we witnessed that phenomenon at all. But to have it in this music video that is really gritty and really grimy and really grainy, and just straight up a portrait of witness, a witness of ascension, and not just a single ascension, but an ascension that everyone feels like they have a part in, you know, an ascension that everyone feels like they are contributing to. And you can become more famous. DMX became more famous than he was when Hype Williams nudged his camera into the tunnel. You can become more famous to the world, but you are actually never as famous as you are in the moment where your hometown gets to watch you and realize you've crossed the threshold, right? Yeah. Like I every time, the last time I had a book release party in Columbus, I was like, it was the first time, it was when There's Always This Year came out, the day before it came out. I was like, I don't care what happens on the rest of this tour. I'm never gonna feel more famous than I feel right now. And to get that captured in a video form, singular.
Amazing. I'm never going to listen to DMX in the same way after that.
Also, this Dark and Hell's Hot is a bananas album to listen to from front to back. It is like, I don't think it's a classic, but it is.
It is a moment.
It is a moment. It's like a real moment. Like you can feels very much like 1998, 97, 98.
We got to keep trucking. We have so much more music to listen to. And next is a truly epic song that it's 10 minutes long. We're gonna just scratch the surface of it. It's Maggot Brain, Funkadelic, 1971. And when you buy this record in 1971 and put it on your turntable, side A, you put the needle down, this is the first thing that you hear.
Mother Earth is pregnant for the 3rd time, for y'all have knocked her up. I have tasted the maggots in the mind of the universe. I was not offended, for I knew I had to rise above it all, or drown in my own shit.
And then you are treated to 9.5 minutes of one of the most searing electric guitar solos in recorded history, courtesy of Eddie Hazel. And let's just hear like a minute of that, please. What canon event is tied to this song for you, Hanif?
I get so emotional. I love Eddie Hazel. I try really hard to never talk about specifically black musicians as only tragic, and so I don't want to do. But Eddie Hazel does have. I mean, like he really. First off, I'll say a very short thing about a poem. When I first started writing poems, I was mostly self-taught. I was reading poems in 2011, 2012, and I was like, I just want to write poems about music. Is anyone doing that? Of course, everyone's doing that. But the poet Adrian Matika, in his second book, Mixology, has a poem called Maggot Brain about Eddie Hazel. Oh, wow. And he plays off of the Play Like Your Mama Died line. The end of the poem has this incredible line, Maggot Brain, somebody somewhere is losing a mother right now. And I was like, damn, I wish I could write something like that. And I've spent the rest of my life trying to, you know? So I mostly want to say that because I love Adrian Matika, and I'm thankful for his work. However, the thing people get wrong about Maggot Brain, well, the lore is slightly incorrect. The lore has been shorthanded. Because what we're told is that they went in the studio and George Clinton told Eddie Hazel what?
Play a solo like you just learned your mother had died.
Right. And it's gotten shorthanded to like play like your mama died. But he says more than that. First off, it's important to note that Maggot Brain was all done in one take.
Yeah.
Eddie Hazel played that in one take, one straight through take, which is unreal. And he was like 22. I say that because feats of brilliance when it comes to musicians in their ages tend to skew largely towards white musicians. So we get like Van Morrison was 22 when he made Astral Weeks, or 23 when he made Astral Weeks, which massively important to this person was, you know, but Eddie Hazel played one of the greatest guitar solos in history. 9 straight minutes, one take at 22 years old, 21, 22 years old. And George Clinton did not just say, play like your mother had just died, but he said this thing after that was like, play like you're taking the full measure of your life. Who were you before and who are you going to be after? Play like you're wrestling with that. Like you know that you are going home and your mother will no longer be there. And that's actually a different charge, I think. Because one is saying, play like you are feeling something immediate. The other thing is saying, play like you have just learned a new kind of heartbreak has moved in and it's not moving out. And I actually think if you listen to the guitar solo, I do get very emotional when I think about this because there's a difference in the feeling I knew and understood in the moment after my mother died, and in the feeling I knew and understood in the months after my mother died, right? There's not actually, in a material way, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone's loss, the moment after I was told that my mother died, I did not have time to process anything other than the immediacy of absence, which doesn't really, at least for me, did not have a lot of acts to it, the way a play might have acts. But if the question is, at what point did you begin to take stock of loss and not just death? I think death and loss are related, similar, siblings, cousins, however you want to shape it. But when did I take stock of loss? That happened in several ongoing acts. And if you listen to Maggot Brain, what I love about the guitar solo is that there are points of it where it feels like it's actually running up against a wall, where it feels like he's starting to find a way out of something and then retreating. And there are moments where the guitar solo gets a bit exuberant, the tension breaks and it gets a little exuberant, and it feels like he's broken through a wall only to find there's another wall. And I think that's just, if you think about how to come to terms with loss, it is eternally, sometimes joyfully, I think, scaling one wall, getting over that wall only to realize there's another wall to scale. And that to me is different than saying, come to terms with the immediacy of death.
Do you experience that sense of loss when you listen to this
Yeah,
song?
absolutely. I feel like I'm laughing because I was like at a late night record thing where people would put on records and we talk and whatever, and someone put on Maggot Brain, and everyone was having like a great night, and then I suddenly started crying, and everyone was like, "Why are you crying?" And I had to be like, "Well, it's kind of like, this is just like a sonic metaphor for loss if you think about it." It's like 2 a.m. Everyone's having a good time. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I get very emotional when I hear that song. I think some of that is also because I feel real grief for Eddie Hazel, who is someone who just had so much talent and ability, and I think it's heartbreaking that he did not have the career that I think that piece of music, which is like, I don't know of any other guitarist. He doesn't get talked about at all in terms of great guitarists in history. And I think some of that is because of the body of work. Like, the body of work is a little spottier than you'd like. But also, I think that makes Maggot Brain that much more miraculous, because I don't know if there's so many guitarists who couldn't do that. There are so many guitarists who are probably seen as better guitarists who could not sustain what he sustained for 10 minutes. And it's because he was given a directive, or I'd like to think it was because he was given a directive that actually has movement to it. He was given like a propulsive directive instead of just lingering on play like you have encountered death. Instead, play like you were trying to deconstruct not just loss, but the entirety of your life after loss, enduring several losses to come. You know what I mean? It's different math.
All right, we have the antidote to this.
Yeah.
It's our next
Is
song.
it Book of Love?
It's Book of Love.
Oh, yes.
You Make Me Feel So Good.
God, I love this song.
Self-titled album, 1986. DJ.
Talked about death, let's talk about love.
I feel like we probably need to acknowledge at some point in this conversation how unbelievably eclectic this playlist is and how reflective that is of your approach to listening in general, and is one of the most kind of inspiring things that I've gleaned from listening to you and reading your work. It's really challenged me to open my ears to sounds that I might have thought weren't for me in some way.
Yeah.
When I hear you just embracing every song from every genre and every time period, not in this performative way of like, oh, look at me.
I really be liking shit.
You really feel it, and it really rocked my world, because I was like, what am I missing out on? Where does that come from?
That's a good question. I think I have to give a shout out to my siblings. I'm lucky. First of all, does anyone in the room even know who Book of Love is? A couple of you? Philly synth pop band. Extremely attractive band. Like, there are bands where it's like everyone looks kind of good, you know? You know a sneaky, not unfortunately, I kind of like them. You know a sneaky band where everyone looks good? Starland Vocal Band. Starland Vocal Band.
Did not see that coming.
I actually really like Starland Vocal Band. I like that record. I like the record that Afternoon Delight's on. I actually don't think Afternoon Delight's that bad of a song. I blame Anchorman for making a joke out of it. But it's actually a very tender song. Anyway, I have 4 siblings who were all older than me, and they all had really wonderful taste in music. And I just got to kind of, sit underneath the table of their brilliant taste and get the scraps. I also had 2 college-age siblings who were in college during what I think is the golden era of college radio, that like early mid-'90s era. And I just got to hear so much stuff. And I got really interested in specific sounds. My parents also, incredibly rich record collections. And my ear my pop ear was tuned at a very specific age. I knew I loved keys. I knew I loved synthesizers. I knew I loved big choruses, which, I mean, Book of Love hits all. Book of Love also, people are always like, the thing about Duran Duran is all those guys with last names the same, and they're not related. Book of Love, there's two people in that band with the last name Ottaviano, not related. They just met in high school, and they were
Really
like,
bananas. Yeah.
are we related? And then they found out they weren't related, and then so obviously the next step was, let's start a band.
That is a rule.
Well, I mean, if I met another Abdurraqib today,
Got to start a band.
I'd be like, man, we might have to do it. There's not enough of us. Well, another Abdurraqib I'm not related to. We didn't have like a Jackson 5 thing happening in my family. My dad would not have been a good stage dad. No, well, I guess neither was Joe Jackson.
Nope.
My dad would have been better than that. If my dad's watching, I hope my dad doesn't watch this when it comes out. Actually, no, that was very complimentary. Anyway,
Yeah.
Book of Love.
We should probably keep trucking.
Yeah.
We've got limited time.
We have limited time, and I've been talking to you.
multiple music to get through.
Can I say one quick thing?
Please.
I want people to go and listen to You Make Me Feel So Good, because it is a quintessential love song to me, because I'm not someone, despite my poetic leanings, when it comes to love songs, I prefer plain spoken repetition. I prefer someone who cannot wait to say that they love you and how much they love you as many times as they can within about 3 minutes. And so listen to You Make Me Feel So Good.
Track 7, Ecclesiastes, Free My Heart, Meshell, Ndegeocello, the album Peace Beyond Passion from 1996. Richard.
I come forth from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return to the earth, to go as I came, taking nothing of the supposed worldly gain. I'm so ready to go. Free my heart so my soul may fly, my soul may fly. Free my mind of my worldly wants and desires.
That's a very Stevie Wonder move, actually.
Yeah.
To just funk it up at the end.
She's one-on-one, like really kind of one-on-one. Not many like her. She's one of my favorite artists, right? In history. And I had this strange thing once where I thought, if I ever run into Meshell Ndegeocello in person, I'm going to tell her all about what I love specifically about her bass playing, like her command of the instrument and the way that she can she treats the strings tenderly. I think she's really a tender player.
Yeah.
Where you think about someone like James Jamerson, or even someone
Larry
like
Graham.
Larry Graham, yeah, or like Monk even, where you can just feel the brutality in the playing, which I also like. But I actually was standing outside of a pancake spot in Brooklyn. I curate music sometimes at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And there was a show, Meshell Ndegeocello opened for Andre 3000. Next morning, I'm standing in line at a pancake place in Brooklyn, and I get a little tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Meshell Ndegeocello, and she says, I really like, I guess she had read A Little Devil in America, and she's like, I really like and admire your writing. And I just screamed a series of words at her. I don't even remember what I said. I don't really get, people who know me a little bit, I don't really get starstruck.
Yeah.
I don't really get, I'm very even-keeled, but that day it was not the case. And I think it's because there's something about her music that feels, I talked about my family, her music kind of felt like a uniting thing. Like, I remember my dad listening to her records, and my sister was listening to her records, and Bitter was such a huge thing for me. And so next time I run into her, I'll tell her, I will get very into specifics about what I love about her bass playing. The first time I just yelled some things.
Wise is the adjective that
Yeah.
comes to mind when I think of Meshell.
Yeah.
With like wisdom, and not in a cliche way, like in a really, she's like a sage-like.
And
or
she's just
something.
like a real one. Like, she's just so, she makes the art she wants to make.
Yeah.
She's not really with the nonsense. She's really just trying to execute a vision for a full body of work over the course of, it's like legacy building, like legacy crafting in a very intentional way. The fact that she spends so much time bringing specifically Black literature to life through sonic exercise, I think we're going to look back on this work, because I don't know if it's being fully appreciated now in real time. I think we're going to look back on this work and think about how important, hopefully people think about how important it is to say read Baldwin the way that she's reading Baldwin through sonic experience and sonic experimentation, to offer people a new entry point through which they can understand text. The care that she's putting into not just reading, but manifesting that which is read and building sonic worlds around that. For me, and I know I'm a fan, so maybe but I really do think it's an underappreciated thing that's happening in the real time.
We have 5 more songs in like 10 minutes.
All right, let's get it.
Folks, we have another music video. It's Bon Iver and Lykke Li. This is them performing Dance, Dance,
In a
Dance
park.
live in Los Angeles in 2008. Richard, whenever you're ready.
Having troubles telling how I feel, but I can dance, dance, dance. And couldn't possibly tell you just how I mean, but I can dance, dance, dance. So if I trip on my feet, look at the beat, the words are written in the sand. Now when I'm shaking my head, look for the swing, the words are written in the sand. Oh, done. I was a dancer all along. Dance, dance, dance. Now words can never make up for what you do.
I love that video mostly because it's very childlike in nature.
Yeah.
Like, it is really of its time. It's like the grainy, someone was just with a camcorder. But if you watch the whole thing, there's a point where, like, when the little kazoo solo happens,
Oh, yeah.
and she's playing like a little toy thing, and Bonnie, it feels very unrehearsed. Like, there's a point where you can tell Bonnie they're feeling their way around it. I love it. I love that kind of, it feels like they just ran into each other in the street and were like, do you want to do something? And I don't even know, I like that. I actually like that song in its original form a lot.
Yeah.
Her tunes I can be hit or miss on. I love that song in its original form more than I like that video of it. But sometimes what I prefer about a video of a live performance is if it feels like it only happened that one time, it could never happen again.
Yeah.
If it's not polished, if it's not. One of the first moments of live music performance I ever saw was that now very iconic video of the Who playing Bob, and I'm not even like a big Who fan, but a very iconic video of Who playing Bob O'Reilly in like 76, where the one where Pete Townshend's like, and it felt to me, because if you watch that whole video and you just watch Pete Townsend, it's bananas. Like he has a tambourine and he's like banging the tambourine and he flings it across the room and then he turns up his guitar and does and you can feel like the note vibrating through his whole body.
Yeah.
And I remember being a kid and seeing that and thinking, this could never happen again. Like, this is a once in a lifetime experience. It's what I love about live music. It's what I love about the experience of the live song. And so what I love about that video is it feels like it could not be replicated because they were figuring it out in real time. They were like doing the math in real time.
Yeah. It is like you like imbibe that joy when you watch it.
Yeah.
It's very tactile. Track 9, Joan Armatrading, Love and Affection, 1976, her debut
I
album.
love her.
Maestro.
Thank you. You took me dancing across the floor, cheek to cheek, but with a love I could really move, really move. I could really dance, really dance, really dance, really dance. I could really move, really move, really move, really move. Now if I can feel the sun in my eyes and the rain on my face, why can't I feel love? Really love, really love, really love, really love, really love, 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 love. Now I got all the friends that I love.
There is like no greater moment for me in like a love song than that moment where she repeats the word love over and over again and flows into that. Now I've got all the friends that I want. What a fucking lyric. You know what I mean? Like, it's so, one, it's delivered so sweetly, but it's actually it's a firm statement. Yeah. It's like, I don't want this bullshit. I'm telling you, I want to be loved in a very specific way. I adore that. And the Old Grey, she performed that on Old Grey Whistle Test in 74 or 5. And that moment, as it's animated in that performance, is breathtaking. And I interviewed Joan Armatrading when I was doing Objective Sound. For those who didn't know, I used to host a music interview show called Objective Sound. And I'm gonna be real, there were some bookings that were very much me being like, we have to get Joan Armatrading had a record come out, and I was like, listen, I know this is not a big enough name for y'all. Sonos is like, we need a bigger name. I was like, we gotta get Joan Armatrading. We got Joan Armatrading, and I was trying to keep my professional, but I was telling her, like, that Old Grey Whistle Test performance, I love it, I watch it so much. And she squinted, we were on Zoom, and she like squinted at the Zoom box. And she said, how do you know about that performance? Huh. You can't be any more than 30 years old. I was like, first of all, I'm a little bit older, but thank you for, skincare routines working, But I was like, I didn't know what else to say, so I was like, Miss Armatrading, I'm like one of your biggest fans. I really love Joan Armatrading, and I wish I could bottle, like if there were a part of a song I wish I could hear every single day of my life, it is that part, that love, 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 love. Now I got all the friends that I want. All the friends that I want. I would like more friends personally, but in the context of like delineating very clearly what one's needs and desires are, I love it. Love a clear communicator,
This is a new one to me. Track 10, The 5 Heartbeats in the Middle from 1991. DJ.
Let's do a thing. I can't see, so this is going to be an honest exercise. Make some noise if you know who the 5 Heartbeats are. Make some noise if you are not black and know who the 5 Heartbeats are. That's impressive, honestly. 5 Heartbeats is like a very, like I feel like even black people, a lot of black people who did not grow up in a certain era don't know that film. It's a brilliant Robert Townsend film. Yeah. A massively underappreciated film, was not critically acclaimed or commercially successful in its time. It later received a reappraisal. but it is essentially a musical about, a soul group, fictional, though the songs on the soundtrack, like that one, were sung by a group called the Dells. In the Middle is funny as it exists in the film because the scene it exists in is like after the Five Heartbeats, their lead singer leaves them, and they replace their lead singer with a once rival named Flash. And they play this show at the Beacon in New York, and I think that the timestamp is like 1980. And Robert Townsend's character, Duck, his name is Duck, comes out with a keytar, but the keytar hadn't been invented yet. And so there's this real funny, and every time I watch Five Heartbeats, I try. I'm not one of those guys. I know that I come across. I'm not a real explainer. I'm not the explainer type, And I know I come across as like, this motherfucker's like a music nerd who has way too many facts, and that's true. But I don't really be sharing them with people in real time, because no one. So what I'm saying is,
You're skeptical, but yeah.
I was on a date a couple years ago, and we were watching the Five Heartbeats. We it was like I got it to play in a theater, not just for the two of us, but for, no, that would have been slick, Future plans. But we were watching the theater, and the keytar scene happened, and I was like, man, the keytar was not invented when this. In my head, I'm thinking this, but I'm also like, to say this out loud guarantees this person will like me less. Because she doesn't care about the invention of the keytar, at least not right now. I guess we can see how the night goes, but I don't think. And so what I'm saying is, go home and watch the Five Heartbeats, and when that scene comes on, just hear me in the back of your head. And know that if I were there with you physically, I would not say anything.
Life lessons left and right here, folks. Track 11, Sleater-Kinney, Call the Doctor, 1996. Maestro.
Janet Weiss, man, I can't. If I'm thinking the best drummers alive, I don't think I get to 5 without naming Janet Weiss. It's just such a distinct. Although I feel like, for me, the star of that moment, I love Corin Tucker. I love Corin Tucker's voice so much, and I heard that at such an early age. I remember hearing that song at an early age. And Sleater-Kinney is one of my favorite bands of all time. I actually think that they have the body of work for it. I think they're one of the great American rock bands in history that never gets talked about that way.
Yeah.
Never gets talked about that way. One Beat is a monumental record. The Woods is somehow even more monumental than One Beat. But if you go back in a little bit to All Hands on the Bad One and Call the Doctor is a song that I remember hearing when I was young and being instant. The first time I heard Corin Tucker's voice, I was like, no. It's so off-putting. But by the time I got to the end of that song, that moment that we heard, I was so into it. I was like, talk about repetition in the way that her and Carey are battling through repetitions, where it feels like they're pulling at each other. Man, I love Sleater-Kinney. I love Sleater-Kinney so much. It's just, and I know that Janet's not with the band anymore, and people feel ways about that I understand. But the body of work's already there. Even if you just look at the Janet albums, if you love Janet, I love Janet too. If you just look at that body of work, perfect run of records.
This is a song I think that would sound really good being blasted out of speakers outside a hotel where ICE agents are staying. I feel like that's the
Yeah.
perfect
Yeah.
venue for this track.
I actually made, I mean, not to get too deep into the resistance work we are not doing, but I made a playlist for such a thing when we had ICE agents in Columbus, and we were pulling up to the hotels and whatnot, and I did not put this song on there. I should have. I think in my moments of rage, I was just like, it's like, we can just put a bunch of dead Kennedys and circle jerks, and it's like the loudest, most obnoxious punk I could think of. But actually, I wouldn't, actually, you know what? I don't believe ICE agents deserve that song.
It's too good.
I don't think they deserve Sleater-Kinney, man. I just,
They don't deserve Janet Weiss.
they don't deserve that band. I love that band so much. And I think, not to give people more supplemental viewing, but there's a video of them performing that at CBGB. Janet was not drumming with them at that point. But you can watch a video of them performing it. It's so impressive. It's so cool. The interplay between Corin and Carey is like nothing else. To me, the way people be talking about Lennon and McCartney, that's how I be talking about Corin Tucker and Carey Brownstein.
We've arrived at track 12, the final track in our playlist. And I'll tell you what the song is. It's Lost in the Supermarket by The Clash, off their classic album, London Calling, from 1979. Hanif, will you tell us just very quickly about this song?
Yes, very briefly, London Calling is one of my favorite records of all time. I am someone who is, people who know my work or me a little bit, I talk about this often, I'm someone who's like clinically anxious in multiple ways, multiple clinical anxiety disorders. And one way that anxiety is enlivened is by being in an unfamiliar grocery store. So for example, when I'm at home in Columbus even, I can't go to but 2 Targets because the layouts of different Targets like really fuck with my head. For real. And so I go to like the same handful of grocery stores, and like when I'm traveling, before I go to a grocery store, I like ask a friend who lives there to explain the layout to me, because otherwise I get very overwhelmed very quickly and I get very anxious. And that was something that the first point at which I knew that my brain chemistry was perhaps different than other people was when I was a kid and I would go shopping with my mother and she would send me to go pick out things, and I would get so overwhelmed and it would take me such a long time, and I would move through the aisles with a real trepidation. And so this song reminds me of my smallest and most fearful self, and that means that it also reminds me of the gratitude I have for my slightly bigger, slightly less afraid self.
All right, this is special. As you see on the slide behind me, we're not going to listen to the recording of this song. We're going to hear a live performance of it. And that performance is by Uwade Akere, a Nigerian-American indie folk musician from Charlotte, North Carolina, and a second-year classics doctoral student at Stanford. I have some more verbiage as Uwade sets up. You may recognize her voice from the opening sounds of the Fleet Foxes' Grammy-nominated album Shore, and in addition to touring with them, she's also opened for artists such as Jamila Wood, Sylvan Esso, and The Strokes. Her debut album, Florilegium, was released last year. Go check it out.
Very good.
And now, performing Lost in the Supermarket by The Clash, Uwade.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and for such a beautiful conversation. If anyone doesn't know this song already, you will be surprised when you listen to it after I perform it, because I like to infuse all my covers with a healthy dose of melancholy. So that's what you'll get.
In the supermarket, I can no longer shop happily. I came in here for that special offer, a guaranteed personality. I wasn't born so much as I fell out. Nobody seemed to notice me. We had
a hedge back home in the suburbs over which I never could see. I heard the people who lived on the ceiling scream and fight most scarily. Hearing that noise was my first ever feeling. That's how it's been all around me. I'm all lost in the supermarket. I can no longer shop happily. I came in here for that special offer, a guaranteed personality. I'm all tuned in, I see all the programs. I save coupons from packets of tea. I've got my giant hit discotheque album, empty a bottle and I feel a bit free. The kids in halls and the pipes in the walls make me noises for company. Long distance callers make long distance calls, and the silence makes me lonely. I'm all lost in the supermarket. I can no longer shop happily. I came in here for that special offer, a guaranteed personality. I'm all lost in the supermarket. I can no longer shop happily. I came in here for that special offer, a guaranteed personality.